every day. Yeah. Ooh, baby, I love your way every day. Shadows grow so long before my eyes.
Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Welcome back to the Project Gen X podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And on this episode, you know, Dave, you say, I only hear what I want to.
I'm not going to lie. When this video came on, I would turn the volume off and just look at Lisa Loeb.
We'll talk about that on this episode.
She was cute.
Yeah. On this episode, we are going to be covering the 1994 movie Reality Bites. Because, you know...
Where did this one rank in our...
It won. This was the movie that won our most Gen X movie of all time.
I cannot believe that this was a winner.
Yeah.
I think I couldn't believe that it was the winner when we did the
I was not involved in the final, I was just moderating.
Yeah.
And it somehow made its way all the way through. And it wound up taking the championship. And this is the first time I've seen this movie in...
Since we did those episodes?
No. I didn't even watch it then.
I did.
And...
Yeah.
I have thoughts. That's all I can say. Hold on just a second. Let's get all the details on this real quick because...
Go right ahead, because I'm not a big fan of this movie.
Well, we'll get there. So it was released February 18th, 1994. I will say this. I do not remember this movie being released this early in the year. I remember because I went to the theater and saw it when it was released.
Really?
I kept thinking it was like a May or June release for some reason, but it was released in February of 94. The crazy thing about it, or let's see, the opening weekend box office was $11.5 million.
Okay.
It had a gross of $20.9 million overall, U.S. and Canada, and worldwide gross of $33 million. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Opening weekend was $5.1 million. The budget was $11.5 million, and it had a worldwide gross of $33. So it did moderately well. It wasn't a big hit, but it did moderately well.
You said 33.
33 is what it... Yeah, because 33 is the magic number. Okay, so, and I'll tell you part of the reason that I didn't remember February being the release date for it is because this was at Sundance Film Festival, the same time as Pulp Fiction, and another little movie that came out in 1984 called Clerks.
Clerks?
Yes.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I know. And that was one of the things that Kevin Smith has talked about in the past of he brought Clerks to Sundance. Mm-hmm. And then Universal was bringing Reality Bites there as this is going to be this Gen X opus, and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, okay, so you had basically a fight between what the corporate world thought that Gen X was and what it actually was.
Yeah. And the fact that Clerks lost out to this piece of garbage, this commercialized.
What did it lose out to? Clerks did well. Clerks went on to do really well.
Yeah.
I know, but
I'm talking about in our...
Oh, look, it is what it is. Look, you or I neither one had any sway over that whatsoever.
Yeah, no,
we did our bracket, and then whenever it came down to it, you were running the board, I was doing I was moderating, and we had the rest of the panel doing the selecting process, and it made it all the way through to number one. And hey, look, I was surprised And again, it wasn't in our bracket, but, Breakfast Club didn't make it out of the second round.
I know.
Which I'm like, how? That just, okay. Yeah. Again, but hey, you know what? We asked people to do.
So we had Kevin Smith with an actual Gen X movie. And then we had what Universal Pictures was trying to cash in on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, that's how that always works.
And honestly, I'm surprised MTV didn't sue the crap out of them for this.
Okay, so there was a book that was put out a couple years after this movie. It was like, I think it was MTV put out a book about the real world, about, and they were talking to the cast members and this and that and stuff. And it was about, I think it was just like the first 4 seasons or something like that, which would have been through 95, I guess, or something, 95 or 96 or whatever. And that was one of the cast members from, I think, the first season. Becky, maybe, not Becky. What was the other one? There was Julie, and then what was the other girl? And not there was Julie, and then there was
hold on, I'm gonna look.
Heather, and then I can't remember the other girl's name. I think her name might have been Becky, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm gonna look it up.
And I think it was her that she said that she was at a restaurant in New York after this movie was released, and Winona Ryder was there, and she went over to say something to her, and the anecdote was that Winona Ryder basically had her people stop her from coming over, and was like, basically said she doesn't want to talk to anybody from the real world or something like that.
Becky.
It was Becky, yeah. And it was kind of one of those things where a lot of people did talk about, oh, hey, the real world's been a thing for a couple of years, and now they're making a movie that's kind of at least adjacent to it,
I like that they made a reference to it at the end credits.
Oh yeah. That was the version that they
It was Becky, Heather, and
Julie. Yeah. So, but it was just kind of one of those things where that's always been kind of with this movie where people were like, oh, you mean that movie about the real world that's not really about the real world?
Yeah.
Because again, it's one of those things with like the in your face TV. They talk about MTV.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's like MTV with an edge, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
the whole Cindy Crawford knockoff.
Yeah, they've got
thing.
the House of Style knockoff and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I get it. And what's funny is that she's watching it later and they're playing that Sepultura video.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah. I watched because when the 10th year anniversary of this movie rolled around in 2004. That's when DVDs were kind of like at their height, with all the special features and all that kind of stuff. And so there was like a retrospective, and they talked to everybody, in there. And this will tell you a lot. One of the writers on this was like 19 years old or 19 or 20 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
It was based off of she had written a story.
Oh, Childress?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So she was really young, so it's one of those where it's like, oh, okay, that comes through.
Helen Childress.
Yeah, it comes through quite a bit, like, oh. Okay.
It was Ben Stiller's featured directorial debut.
Mm-hmm. You got to remember, before this...
It was the Ben Stiller Show.
Ben Stiller Show, and he had been in, like, Heavyweights and a couple of things like that. He was in, I don't know if that was... I don't think that was this year, though. When did Cable Guy come out? Because he's got a small role in that. He was always one of these, like, he would show up in little things, but the Ben Stiller Show was, like, the big thing that he had done. Of course, that had only lasted, like, a season. And...
I'm looking to see.
Which, again, you watch this, of course, it's got Janine Garofalo and Andy Dick shows up, which he was on the Ben Stiller Show. What's his name didn't, though? Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk. I'll get it out in a second. Doesn't show up in it.
No, he doesn't.
He was the fourth member.
Which is a shame because I like Bob Odenkirk.
But, it's got a pretty good... as far as the cast, which you got Winona Ryder playing Lelena Pierce... Ethan Hawke is Troy Dyer. Janine Garofalo is Vicky Minor. Steve Zahn is Sammy Gray. You have Ben Stiller as Michael Greats. You got Swoosie Kurtz as Charlene McGregor, which is Winona Ryder's Lalandra's Lelena. I always want to say Lelena's mom. Let's see. You have Jodan Baker as Tom Pierce, is her dad.
Yeah.
Renee Zellweger is barely in this.
Yeah.
Like she's like at the very
She
beginning.
doesn't even have a.
She's at the very beginning. Like literally, it's
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, like she literally. The only reason she's listed here is because she became something later.
Yeah.
It's kind of like she's in Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
But it's uncredited. She's like in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Type stuff. You got John Mahoney as Grant Goobler. Goobler. Wow. Gubler. Let's see. Who else? There was somebody. Andy.
He was Good Morning Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got, of course, Dave Perner. He was dating one writer at the time. Andy Dick, Keith David. Let's see. Amy Stiller, which is Ben's sister. Who else is? Who am I missing here? Oh, Karen Duffy. And then Evan Dando from
Lemonheads.
The Lemonheads all show up. It just these. Oh, and David Spade.
Yeah,
David Spade's not listed here.
He was Wiener guy.
Yeah, I know, but he's not listed here in the. That's crazy. As you ever say, the guy he was Wiener dude.
Yeah, Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah, well,
it's mentioned down in the notes underneath it.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
What's her name? Chelsea Lagos. That was the House of Style. What else was she in?
Well, she was dating Stiller at the time. Which
is that what it
she
was?
Okay. In the movie.
So I was getting ready to say, it's like I recognize her from something. Anyway, so it was before he got with Christine Taylor.
Yeah, Christine Triplehorn.
Do what?
That's who that was. Christine Triplehorn, or Janine Triplehorn. Sorry.
Where?
Isn't she's the one who did the uncredited appearance of Cindy Crawford?
No, that was who I was just saying. It wasn't Janine Triplehorn.
According to this, Stiller's girlfriend, Janine Triplehorn, makes an appearance as parroting Cindy Crawford.
Hold on. Were you looking at Wikipedia?
Yeah.
I was just looking at the IMDb. Because that was that's who I was talking oh, no. Actually, I take that back. I'm looking at the wrong person. Chelsea Lagos, she was the one that came in with Troy. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong person. That was Janine Triplehorn?
That was Janine Triplehorn.
Really? I kept thinking I know her from somewhere.
Yeah. She was dating Stiller at the time, and she got an uncredited appearance for it.
Oh, yeah. Anthony Robbins is in it. Yep, she sure is. All the way down at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
You're always bagging on me for using...
No, it's fine. It was actually listed here, but it was in the further down the... All right. So that's who that was. I thought it was somebody different. Did you see this back in the day?
It was probably a rental. I wouldn't have gone and seen this in the theater. This would have been a blockbuster night for me. And probably because somebody else wanted to see it, not me.
At that age, what did you think of it?
I was like, yeah, I know some of these people, but they're not anybody I'd hang out with. Mm-hmm. It's like I would see these people in high school, but it's like that's part of the group that I don't hang out with.
Yeah. I was in college when this came out.
Well,
this
yeah,
was released.
So was I. But it was one of those things. It's like I see these people around.
And that was kind of the...
There were people in the coffee house scene that I was like, okay, that's my group there. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's my group there. But these people that were actually following around the movie, I would have never hung out with any of these folks.
Well...
With the exception of Ethan Hawke's character, he would have been in the circle, but I wouldn't have liked him.
I have a love-hate relationship with Troy.
Yeah, that guy.
Because...
I mean, he can be a nice guy, but he's never going to be a nice guy.
You know,
he's always going to be the jerk.
Yeah, and that's it's funny. When I was watching this movie. First off, I saw this movie in theaters the first time.
Yeah,
hated it. Hated the movie from top to bottom. Absolutely hated it.
Because when it was rented, we watched it. I was like, oh, this is the movie companies trying to cash in on us.
Because there had been other, singles had come out a couple of years prior, which I really like singles. And a few other things, but it was just like, okay, they're paying attention to Gen X for the first time in a while.
They're trying to market to us, but they're trying to market us garbage.
Yeah. And like I said, I really hated the movie the first time I saw it. I mean, I had nothing good to say about it. Now, my friends that I went with, they seemed to like it pretty well, but I was like, that was terrible. And I'll tell you why I did not like it. And part of it was I went back when I was watching this the other night, and the trailer was on and so I watched the trailer, and I was like, oh yeah, I was sold on a different movie than what this wound up being. Yeah. That's the trailer for it is this wackety, comedy about young people.
It's the Vignette stuff. The preview is all the VHS video cut stuff.
And well, it's not only that, but it's also a lot of the comedy. It's all of the oh look, this is the them dancing to My Sharona and the gas station and this and that and kind of stuff, and it's just like, oh, okay. But then when you actually watch the movie, it's like, this is not the movie that we were sold on whatsoever. No. It was all this quick cut, this and that, and everything. So watching the movie, I really didn't like it. A few years later, like several years later, actually, I went back and rewatched it for whatever reason. I don't remember why, and absolutely fell in love with it.
Really?
Yeah. And I kind of kept that feeling about it for a long time. Now, I had not seen it for a really long time until last night.
Yeah.
And then I had a whole different perspective on it. So, and we'll get to that. I will say this, and it's also something that was said in the retrospective that they did. The 10-year.
Yeah. Okay.
Of really liking when the what's her name that wrote the movie, talking about how when she was working on it and back then she really associated with Elena and all these, all those characters and stuff. She's like, but now Michael was kind of the character that I'm looking at going, no. That's the life right there. And I can see that some now. I was kind of watching it this time because, they really make Michael out to be, he's not very smart. He's not, he's definitely, and he even points it out. He's not anywhere near as clever or as witty as Troy, this kind of stuff. But he's also made like, oh, he's a yuppie. Why would you ever want that? Why would you want a real job? Why would you want that kind of stuff? And now I'm like, no, why wouldn't you want all that stuff?
Well, here's the thing. All of them, including Michael, are kind of in the same boat, but they've all taken different paths to get there.
Right.
Whereas those guys are trying to they're all trying to figure it out. But,
absolutely.
But the difference between them and Michael is Michael went, I got to make a living. I've got to have something, to show for it. Mm-hmm. And once again, he did that slow rise to the middle, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just trying to figure it out like everybody else.
Right.
The difference is he went, okay, so I can make money doing this.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I've got a nice car, but I like my car. Yeah, I have some clothes.
Right.
But I've worked for this.
Right. And he points that out also.
Yeah.
That's the whole,
and, he loves music. He wishes he had gone into astrology, Astronomy,
yeah.
He had hopes and dreams, and
right.
He got captured by the system,
as happens to so many people.
I'm right there with him.
Here is the dichotomy of Alan. I am equal parts Troy and Michael.
Yeah.
These days.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I was a whole lot more Troy.
Oh, you had so much potential to become full on Troy.
And that was kind of the.
And yes, folks, at one point I hated Alan's guts.
Oh, at one point everybody's hated my guts. That was, again, when I went back and watched it after my initial viewing, really like, oh, Troy, you know, and of course it's Ethan Hawke. And Ethan Hawke makes everything look cool, you know.
Yeah.
But the pop culture references and, you know, the thinking you're smarter than everybody else, and even in Troy's case, actually being smarter than most everybody else, but having to tell everybody that you're smarter than them. And there is that
sounds familiar.
Yeah, and also the overeducated and underpaid and being, you know, and bouncing from dead end job to dead end job to, like, you know, what's the point of it all? I don't want to turn out like my parents. I don't want to, you know, all this kind of stuff.
He's obviously a smart guy.
Yeah.
He's like you. He's one credit away from getting his fine arts degree.
Yeah. Which is something, because it starts off with the graduation, and then afterwards they're all like, "Yeah, you know, you can go back next year," and you can tell for him he really doesn't care. Yeah, it's like I did that. I'm done with it.
But like me, he's also, you catch him sitting at diner counters reading a book by himself, and he's obviously well read.
Yeah.
I wish I had more time to read like I used to.
Well, you know, that's the whole.
Because half the time you'd walk into Waffle House and find me sitting there by myself reading a book.
The whole thing with him, obviously, you know that he's smart, but when she went to the newspaper for, you know, the job interview, and she's like, "Do you know the definition of irony?" He's like, "Yeah, it's when the actual definition is different than the literal definition."
So completely opposite.
Completely opposite. And she's like, and it's one of those things where he just rattles it off like that, where it's like he knew exactly what it was. And it's like, we've all known those people that have all this wealth of knowledge in their head, but they're just not sharing it with anyone else. You know? And it's like, until they're wanting to make a point. And with Troy, he was always trying to make a point about how smart he was. You know, about how he was more clued in than everybody else.
Are you really clever if you have to tell people that you're clever?
Exactly. You know, and that's one of the things when him and Michael have that kind of showdown. After outside the club, and you know, and Michael is not dumb. He just doesn't have the
creativity.
No. He doesn't have the. And I'm displaying it right here. He doesn't have the immediate recall for stuff that Troy does.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things he's getting there. Like he's trying to come up with court jester, but he's like, you know, you're like the guy with the hat with the bells, and he's like,
that's me. I've never been the fast, quick wit.
Yeah, that kind of
which
stuff.
Which is why it took me 3 years to crush Corey.
There you go. Yeah, but you waited for that one though. That was there's a difference. That is waiting for it. That is letting something set up.
I may not be quick witted, but I am patient and I hold a grudge, which can almost be as useful.
Yeah, which. Here, Michael really dresses Troy down out there, because and the line that stuck with me that I love is when he's like, "Oh yeah, you're sitting over there in clever land," you know, and it's like, he got you on that one, dude. That's my son the other day. We were doing something, and he goes, "I'm clever." And obviously somebody had told him that, you know. I was like, "Oh, really? You're clever?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "So how's that working out for you?"
That is such a
and he just kind of looked at me and was like, "Okay."
That is such a Gen X parent response.
No, it's from Fight Club, you know. It's
Exactly. We have no quotes of our own.
Know,
we quote movies and books at each other.
But I just thought, I was like, nope, I got to take this one. He teed that one up. That was just.
It's like that. Once again, quote, from Pulp Fiction. There's nothing new. All the good stories have been told.
Pump up the volume.
Pump up the volume. What did I say? Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
See,
I was going to say, where are you going with Pulp Fiction on this one?
I'm pump up the volume. I need more coffee.
Yeah. But again, it's the whole the Troy, and it was really funny watching that retrospective because, like I said, they talked to everybody.
Yeah.
And Ethan Hawke. Was, and of course, you got to remember, this was when this was recorded. This was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And he was talking about how, he liked the script and all this kind of stuff. But he even said of the character of Troy, he said, I really enjoyed playing it, but he said it was a real challenge because Troy is such an unlikable character, and he doesn't do anything to make anybody want to like him.
No.
And he really doesn't. I mean, just the whole way that he is constantly, and of course, it's kind of a movie trope and well, it's not even really a movie trope. We've all seen it, and maybe even have done it ourselves. Of the guy that really likes the girl, and he can't bring himself to say it.
Yeah,
and so he
sits behind her in class and pulls her hair.
Well, it's not even that so much. I mean, he just like gives her a hard time all the choices and stuff.
That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, and it really has a lot to do with maturity. It really does. I'm sure I know I was guilty of doing it at a certain time of my life, and it even goes back to what we were talking about last week with Freaks and Geeks, with some of that with.
No, it's all immaturity.
Yeah,
and if
absolutely.
you're not immature at that age,
you're going to be. Look, everyone likes to look back at themselves when they were teens and in the early 20s and think they were so much sure. No, you weren't. We were all
stupid
morons. Okay.
Yeah.
And it just, no matter how mature you think you are,
some of us are still morons.
Look,
I
look every once in a while. I catch myself. I'm like, really? How old are you? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's just kind of the default setting for most of us.
Yeah.
It's kind of no matter how far I think I have come in life, there's this little immature something in the back of my head that just likes to, every once in a while reach out and go, hey, usually at the most inopportune times of where it's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I just did that.
Referencing back to failed attempts at being cool.
Oh, I know. There's a lot to that.
We're still failing at being cool.
Yeah, well,
I'm failing forward at this point.
Failing forward is
failing
what
forward.
I just there are things in Reality Bites that are very of its time, like the Psychic Friends Hotline.
Yes. The LaToya Jackson.
Psychic
Friend.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, it wasn't even Miss Cleo.
No, I know that. Yeah, this is before Miss Cleo came in.
Yeah.
It was LaToya. Yeah, it was LaToya Jackson.
Which
is always a mark of quality when you got LaToya Jackson attached to it. So.
We got a $400 phone bill.
I know.
Mostly to a 900
number. I know. And the whole thing with her, on the phone talking to the quote unquote psychic.
Yeah.
And what I really loved was that the first thing she's like, I feel like there's a guy, his name starts with an N. She's like, N. Newsstand. He got fired from it. It's like, that's how all of that works.
Yep.
You throw something out there and the people will fill in the blanks for you. That is, that's cold reading is, man, it's a wicked thing.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, you can mess somebody up seriously with that kind of stuff because they want to believe. And so they'll give you everything that you need.
They're already vulnerable.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is that little twist of manipulation.
Yep. That's I always go back on that to, I don't know, it was probably a year after 9/11 or something like that. And Penn and Teller were out on tour, and they were coming through Nashville. And I've heard him tell this story multiple times across but this is the first time I heard it. He was on the radio here.
Yeah.
And he was talking about this stuff, and at the time, John Edwards was a big thing, the crossing over on Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
And believe me, I knew people who watched it and were just like, oh my God, this is so
he's so good.
And he brought it up, and he was like, yeah, you got to love, John Edwards has got this amazing power to where he can tell you things that you didn't know. He's like, and what does he do with that power? He wanted to make sure that whatever that thing was that started with an L that Grandma was really upset about was way more important than tell us about stuff like, oh, I don't know, 9/11.
Yeah.
And he just went off at that point. It was like, yeah, you got a point there. So it was just.
Well, I don't predict the future.
Yeah, whatever.
To the dead.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Whatever. I look. I'm sure there is someone out there. There may be multiple someones out there in our listening audience who believes in all that stuff. You know what? More power to you. But it's all been debunked.
Oh, come on, Uri Geller.
Yeah. Okay. What is that? What was that documentary? The Honest Liar. Have you seen that about Amazing Randy?
No.
About James Randi. Dude, because that was a whole thing that like for decades, James Randi and Uri Geller were just like, every time Uri Geller would like go on a talk show, Randy was there within a few days to like, okay, you remember when he did all that? Let me show you how it's done.
Oh,
oh
wait, yeah, I forgot he had a tail. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it was a long. I mean, like they went on for decades between those two. So yeah, I had a completely different experience this time. There is a kind of somewhat famous YouTube video of some Gen Z or millennial woman that's got a channel. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll find it and link it. And it's really funny where she's like going back and reviewing movies, you know, and she reviews this. And she's like, and the whole thing when Elena gets fired from her job, or she gets fired because she's an asshole. Let's be honest. I mean, that was she deserved to be fired because she did the thing you're not supposed to do.
Well, she thought she was being funny because...
Well, she was upset because he didn't like her work and really didn't want her working there.
Yeah.
The only reason she had a job is because one of the producers was like, no, she really has some talent. And the guy... what was his Good Morning Grant?
It was Good Morning
Grant did not like her.
Yeah.
And he's like, fire. He kept telling the producer, fire her. I don't want her here.
And the problem is she gave him an excuse to get her fired.
And then she went on a live and like screwed up some stuff on a live television show.
Well, she anchormanned him.
Yeah. And where he was, and it was like, no, you deserve that. Like,
yeah.
You deserve worse than that. Like that, I would think there would be a lawsuit involved in that at some point.
Because when you get a professional reader, all they do is read off the cards. They don't even know what they're saying.
The whole thing was that, like, you know, it's like
news models.
When she's talking to her mom, you know, and she's like, I need a loan, you know, because I, you know, this and that, you know, her mom's doing, oh, you know, times are hard, sugar bear, and blah, 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 you know, that kind of stuff. And this YouTube commentator being like, oh, really, 1994? Oh, you know, basically all the you couldn't find a job in your field. Oh, poor you. Blah blah. Let me tell you about and it going through all today and everything. It's kind of funny and kind of sad all at the same time because I'm like, yeah, but you kind of put yourself in this situation.
Yeah,
millennial. So it's. I'll find it. It's kind of become like a thing that went around, kind of went viral a little bit. You know, there are quite a few of those. There's also another one about like American Beauty. It's not her, it's somebody else who's just like, oh, wow, you got a nice suburban house life, you know, with a good job and 401k and blah blah blah, and you're feeling like you're not fulfilled, and it's like. You have to understand, people, it was a different time, okay?
No, I mean, come on. Our generation did the same thing with the boomers and all of that crap. So.
I know. It all comes around, except for the fact that we're cooler than them. So.
Well, what's funny is that, you know, Gen Z is starting to get up to where they're like, why is everybody letting Gen X slide? Why are we talking crap about those guys?
Well, there's a reason you don't talk crap about
And us. The millennials are like, shut up. Don't wake them.
Ask my son why you don't mess with Gen X, okay? I don't care that he's 10 years old, okay? You tee it up, daddy's going to knock it out of the ballpark, okay?
We don't care.
You'll do the same to your kid, okay?
If you don't, you're doing them a disservice.
So
help them grow a thick skin now so they can avoid their hurt feelings later.
Exactly. Yeah, I
don't like this movie. I'm trying to. It's teed up marketable crap towards our generation, and it was completely tone deaf.
Like I said, I hated it the first time I saw it.
I mean, they hit on all the high points.
Right. Oh yeah, I know they have a fake MTV. They have a fake Real World. They have a, you know, they
House of Style.
Fake,
you've got the coffee house.
You got the coffee house.
You've got the Gap manager. Yep. You've got the person who's trying to be the documentarian.
Right. Who was also the valedictorian of her class.
You've got the guy who's alienated from his parents because he came out to him. We've got the AIDS scare. I mean, they hit on all the Gen X.
You got the dying parents.
Yeah.
It's divorce. They talk about their parents all being divorced or like, what's her name? Janine Garofalo's character, you know, when they're doing she's talking about her parents, like, you know, they're like brother and sister, you know. Like they my mom doesn't even close the door when she goes to the bathroom anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. It's like, I don't ever want to live like that. Blah blah blah. But at the same time, she's keeping a diary of all the guys she slept with.
Yeah.
And like, why? You know, I mean, and it's like there is that scene when they're at the where and it's probably the best thing Janeane Garofalo's done.
And the thing about it is that she got fired from the movie and wouldn't have even been in the movie if Winona Ryder had like stepped up to bat and like, no, I wanted her in the movie. You guys fired her. I want her back.
Right. But it was when they're sitting at the restaurant, and she's talking about, you know, I could possibly be dying of AIDS right now, you know, and it's like there is like, as opposed to the only other time we really saw anything massively genuine out of that character was when she got mad whenever Elena wouldn't take the job at the Gap.
Yeah,
she took that as, oh, you think you're better than me,
and she did.
And she really did. Yeah, I know. Because that's the whole thing. She's like, I'm not taking a job at the Gap. And the tone of her voice was, that's beneath me.
Yeah.
You know, it's in. I love that. I love that when she's talking to her mom. And of course, you know, her stepdad is a complete moron. And
what, 20?
He's
years?
a lot younger than the mom.
Yeah.
I know. And what was funny is that, you know, when she's sitting there and he's like, you know, you could get a job at the burger place. You know, they as they put it in the movie, I saw
this is also of the time.
Yeah, she's like, I saw
they had a
little retarded boy that was working at the. It's like, Mom, I was the valedictorian of my class, and her stepdad goes, well, you don't have to put that on the application. I was like, there you go, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing with Keith David. You know, even whenever she's applying for the job there,
yeah.
And he's like, look, I don't have to tell you this. You're too qualified for this job.
Well, that was at the radio station.
Yeah, and that was Keith David.
Yeah.
It was, you know, and he was like, you're too qualified for this job, which is such a BS answer. You know why employers have said that crap in the past? Is they're like, this person knows that they're going to be worth more money than we're going to pay them, and they're going to come around asking for more money later.
Or they're using us as a stepping stone to get to somewhere else. It was a nice transition going from you're overqualified to you don't have any experience.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was it.
Overqualified and not enough experience.
It was the whole newspaper thing, and this was at a time when newspapers were still, meant something.
It was right before the decline of news media, or newspapers.
And then we saw like it started off as a slow death spiral, and then it just started spinning faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And please God, will the New York Times just go away?
Well, you know what killed newspapers, right?
The internet.
No. Craigslist. Newspapers made all their money off
on
of
the ads,
classifieds and the ads.
I get that.
Because back in the day, where'd you go to look for a job? Classifieds.
Well, it was that. It was the internet. Remember Monster.com?
Yeah.
You'll put your out, and then that was what, and what's the other one? Indeed? Is that what it is?
Well, that's the new one.
And then, of course, there's LinkedIn.
There's Glassdoor.
I mean, there's all these places that,
but,
it's just.
Newspapers lived off of advertising and the classifieds.
Mm-hmm. So, but it just...
But that was the beginning of the end was, Craigslist. And
also the fact that the internet, because, hey, we're going to put a paper out in the morning. Well, everything that you're telling me is 12 hours old now, and we're on to like our fourth or fifth thing now.
What was funny is that all the newspapers, finally put up websites, and they were putting their news over there. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they weren't selling the papers because all the news was for free on the internet. Well, now everything that you go to look at is behind a paywall.
They're trying anyway.
And that's killing them even more.
I know. I get that quite a bit with sports stuff. Like something linked to our local paper here, that it'll be like, you get 2 more free articles this month or whatever it is. And it's just like, nah, I don't ever go to you because you're behind everything. Well, even being local, talking about our local teams or that kind of stuff, you're still behind. I can find all this stuff out somewhere else immediately. So
here's the thing: if I want to look at it again, if I've used up my 2 views, I go in, I clean my cache, I clean my cookies, and I go back in, get a new fresh 2 looks.
Or you can use a VPN and just go to a different site. Go to a different area.
I've done that too.
I know that there's. Oh, the cell phone that Michael had.
Oh.
You remember?
Yep.
Dude, I really felt sorry for him watching it this time in a lot of ways. Because first off, his car was wrecked because of her.
Yeah, she threw a cigarette
butt into his car, and he crashed into her because it was catching on fire. And then she just completely upturned his life.
Yeah.
And then was not grateful whenever he gave her a huge opportunity to get her stuff out there, which I understand from an artistic point of view about, hey, that's not what I meant. And she was right about some of it. The way that they cut it up and all the pizza and crap, I get that.
Well,
but,
and on top of that, I don't think he was experienced enough in that position.
Right.
To make sure that she was protected artistically.
Right.
And he admitted that.
He did. He was
like, I'm sorry. And he even like bought plane tickets to go to New York
to
and
get the actual
fit.
I know, get the actual pitch and everything.
Yeah.
I know. And she just up and left him, basically, and it's like, he's not your problem. You are your problem. This is
all the main characters are their own
problems. Yeah.
It's hard to feel sorry for any of these.
Steve Zahn's character, not really, though.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, because he.
Okay.
First off, we don't get a whole lot of character development with him.
No.
I mean, he's kind of the.
And he almost ends up being like the sidekick for the.
He does for everything else. He's obviously
he graduated. We don't know what he graduated with.
No.
And he ends up working at the coffee
shop, at the coffee house. And he doesn't live with them, but he's always over there.
Yeah.
And he still lives at home, if I'm not mistaken. And he did come out to his mom, and then his mom was upset.
Yeah.
And, that was a pretty poignant, with him. Like, she's sitting there, and he's just like,
he's sitting in front of the house. And you can see her through the window.
And she's on the phone.
Yeah.
And, he's like, well, she's really upset. And she's in there, and he's like, at this point, I just want to be let back in the house. I just want to be back in the house. That's just kind of it's really sad. It's like, and again, it was a different time.
Yeah.
These days, parents are like mad if you don't come out. So it's in certain areas, especially on the left coast. So it's.
Remember what you were talking about?
What have I done? How have I failed that I don't have any gay kids?
That thing we were talking about where you always take it too far?
I don't care.
Always take it too far.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, again, there are quite a few things that are of its time. I mean, very much of its time.
It's very dated.
All the 70s references, there's tons, when they're sitting there and they're doing which I thought was really funny. Okay. Especially considering when this came out. Okay.
Yeah.
This came out less than a year after Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dazed and Confused is set in a Texas town.
Yeah.
In the 1970s.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of friends, and they're kind of dealing with high school and blah 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 blah. Of course, this is college, instead. Yeah. But the thing that there was one scene in particular in Dazed and Confused. There's a scene where Pink is walking through. Yeah. Or Randall, whatever, he's walking through.
Randall Pink Floyd.
Randall Pink Floyd, yeah. He's walking through, and the teacher, because it's the last day of school, they are writing down Gilligan's Island, like, plots, like different episodes. Yeah. In this one, they're playing a game with his Good Times. Yeah. Where it's like, oh, this is kind of the same. There's a lot of, it's Houston rather than Austin. Yeah. But it's like, no, there's a lot here that's kind of the same.
You mean ripping off another film?
I know. And it's not a one, again, it's not a one for one, but you can kind of see some of the parallels,
And the thing about it is that all the music drops were basically 70s references.
Yeah, a lot of them. A lot of them.
No.
Well, look at all the stuff that's in.
They would have had early 80s music drop references.
They did a little bit. Squeeze, come on, and My Sharona, the Knack, or the King, or whatever it is. That's fuck it. What is it? The Knack. Yeah, I had that right the first time.
Yeah.
What was I looking up here?
I don't know.
Oh, anyways, what I was going to do is I was going to actually go to the soundtrack.
Okay.
Because the soundtrack is actually pretty good. I've got the soundtrack. So here it is, My Sharona by the Knack. Mm. A song that I absolutely love is Spin the Bottle, Julianne Hatfield 3.
Okay, that's a good one. But I don't remember hearing it. What
it was I heard it last night when I was watching it, and I can't remember where it was. I think it was when they were in the Gap. Whenever she went to,
okay,
and I think it was playing while she saw it talking to the woman, like, oh yeah, you can button it up, you can blah blah blah. I think it was playing there. If I'm not mistaken, yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, exactly. Bed of Roses by the Indians. When You Come Back to Me by World Party. World Party again with
Okay.
Going, Going, Gone. They had 2 songs on this, which they were featured quite a bit.
Yeah.
Then you had Stay by Lisa Loeb and 9 Stories.
During the credits.
At the credits, okay. U2 with All I Want Is You, which they don't play the entire 6.5 minutes of that song, but they play about 4 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Over the big montage in the end. Locked Out by Crowded House.
Which I love Crowded House.
Yeah. Spinning Around Over You, Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah, okay.
You had Ethan Hawke doing "I'm Nothing," which was the song he was doing with "Hey Man, That's My Bike," in the thing. You had Dinosaur Jr. with Turnip Farm, Me Fi Me with Revival. You had Tempted 94 by The Squeeze. They re-recorded it.
Yeah.
And then this is the weird one because this was the other single that they released 3 singles off of this.
Yeah.
Big Mountain doing "Baby I Love Your Ways." Like that was a big hit.
Yeah.
And it's like the Frampton version is what's in
The movie.
Yeah, it was "Baby I Love Your Way" by Big Mountain, Spin the Bottle from
They probably
Julia
couldn't
Latfield,
get the licensing from.
and then Stay, Lisa Loeb. And that was the 3rd single off of it. That was the one that was released. And the whole reason that she got on that is that she was friends with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
They lived next door to each other. She had done music. He was working at he was doing a play in New York. And they were neighbors, and he had this acting troupe that he was doing this with.
Yeah.
And she and the band had done music for them. And so it was one of those things that he had heard this song, and he was like, this needs to be on the soundtrack. And so I don't think she was even under a record label at the point when this was.
Hawk got her signed.
Got her on, that kind of stuff. Now, he also directed the video.
Yeah.
And which is kind of, it's kind of, if you go back and watch that video, because it's like, it's not, but it's supposed to be one long tracking shot, where it's going through all
And
this
there's
stuff.
some edits in it.
There are absolute edits in there, but it's kind of interesting because you didn't see that at the time a whole lot. So that was a little different. I will give it that.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. I like that song. I do.
Yeah.
And I even like Lisa Loeb. But then, and then especially later when I was a little older and went back and listened to that song and watched the video, I was like, oh, we all know that girl. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We all know that girl.
Well, in the girl's defense, we all know that
guy also. Yeah, I know.
Because
I know.
it goes both ways.
And that's kind of the whole, you were going through a rough time, so you wrote a song about it, and it became big. And now I have to live with that. Granted, there's plenty of that going the opposite direction as well, with the guys, in rock bands writing songs about, whatever. But it's also just kind of...
it's not like he was Dave Coulier.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, hold up. Dave Perner is in this because him and Winona Ryder were dating at the time.
Yeah,
it's like, oh look, there he is. It's a, and then I also really something that I caught watching at this time that I did not catch in the past. You remember when after they have the wreck and she's at his office and she's looking at the Dr. Zayas thing and then she drops it and breaks it, kind of stuff. At the end.
Oh, I saw that.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
I had never caught that before.
Really?
It was, when they had the fictionalized version of Reality Bites with Karen Duffy.
Where Michael actually writes a fictional show about the nightmare relationship he had with Lily.
And it's her, and like you can see that statue sitting on the... But I always love to see Karen Duffy and stuff. And then, of course, Ethan Dando was playing, or Evan Dando was playing Roy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you want to screw me over? You want to screw me over?
Yeah.
Ha-ha, TV show.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there was one scene...
I hope he doesn't drink and drive.
I know. There was one... all the smoking. Oh. They are constantly smoking in this movie. Again, of its time. You don't see that anymore. It's...
Everybody, it was kind of like the 70s.
Yeah.
Smoking made a resurgence, and everybody in that era smoked. Usually it was half cigarettes, half cloves.
There is that scene in the middle where Troy comes back to the apartment and he's got a girl with him.
Yeah.
And Elena just like goes at him.
Yep.
And whenever Janine Garofalo, comes over and says, come on, let's go. And he kind of is like getting in her way, like not letting her pass and stuff. I was like, that's bordering on something really bad happening here.
Yeah.
Like if there weren't people around, this could have gotten really bad. And that's kind of one of the things going back and watching this now with watching Troy and the way he treats people.
Yeah.
It's like, this dude,
he's got a temper problem.
in my opinion, I'm sitting there going, yeah, he winds up in jail in 2 years for something. And it's
No, I mean, let's work it out.
Yeah.
Troy ends up in jail.
Uh-huh.
Probably for domestic abuse or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Or dead from drug abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Lelena ends up probably waiting for him to get out of prison.
No. I think, of course, we end the movie with the two of them, quote unquote, together.
Yeah.
Trauma bond, like it always is in these movies. I think
that's a 90s trope.
Yeah. They last 6 months.
Okay.
It might be on or off for another 6 months or so after that, constantly in and out of each other's lives. And then he moves back to Chicago because that's where he's from originally.
Okay.
And she stays in Houston and maybe even makes it to one of the coasts through something that she's worked on. She got enough cachet from not from that, but from she made some kind of connection. Like Michael's still around. This is my own. I think Michael's still around. He still calls from time to time. He's like, hey, look, with the whole him making the other version of it, she winds up getting some money and maybe a producer credit or, based on, by
I
this
don't
person.
think she makes it to a coast. I think she ends up at a mid-major or lower television station as some kind of newscast producer.
Could very well, something like that.
Or ends up working at a radio station somewhere in the middle of the country.
I'm tired
because that thing with Good Morning Grant is going to follow her around the industry
for a while.
Nightmare.
Vicky probably stays in retail
for her entire life.
Yeah, and she winds up making it into
maybe
middle management, like
maybe
district manager or something like that. Of course, she's working for the Gap. She probably goes on to work for Hot Topic at a certain point in the early 2000s. And
she's the one who destroys it from a rock and goth shop and turns it into the pop nightmare that it is now.
Pretty much. And then
because she's so into disco,
I think Sammy. I think probably all of them. Sammy winds up like meeting somebody and they like stay together.
Maybe running the coffee house.
Yeah, something like that.
They buy the coffee house.
Here you go. Let's go completely stereotype. So
no, we're not going there. Stop right there. No, we're not doing that. We are not doing that. I am going to put a stop to it now. Move along.
It's like, come on, they have a nice brownstone.
And stop. It's not owning a coffee shop. You want?
They no, because his partner has actually got a lot of money. Who's older? And he's got an established life, and they wind up. I don't know, adopting a kid from Vietnam or China or something. And
why?
And
why did I do this show?
Because they've got a nice life. They're making good money. They vote Democrat. They got a big social media push. And all this kind of stuff. And
just
and then Michael. I think Michael works his way up through the corporate to where he's, he made a VP at some point,
probably.
And but it's still pining for Elena, and it's
he ends up married to somebody,
but he's
eventually,
but he still pines after her.
Yeah,
and
she's the one who got away.
Yeah,
because we all have those.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of, I think I believe that is kind of the I'll tell you another good movie that goes along with this, and it's got Ethan Hawke in it again. It's called Juliet Naked. Have you seen that?
No.
It's on Max. It came out.
You keep asking me this, and I'm like, no, I've never seen it.
It came out about 5 years ago. I think it came out 2019, either 2018 or 2019. It's him. It's got Rose Byrne, and it's got Chris O'Donnell. Not Chris O'Donnell. Something
O'Donnell.
No, not Chris O'Donnell. Chris O'Dowd. Yeah, those are the big names. There's really not anybody else. But the whole thing
2018.
2018, yeah. I love the movie, and here is okay. Let me give you the. It is not in any way associated with Reality Bites whatsoever. However, you could look at it and say, okay, this is Troy. This is Troy 20 years later, 25 years later.
So Troy makes it as a musician?
No. Here's what happened. So Tucker Crow is the name of the character that he plays. Okay, he put out one album.
All right, I've added it to my Max list.
Watch it. It's you and Renee watch it. I guarantee you'll like it. Okay, it's got some fun. It's got some pretty funny stuff. Basically, what it comes down to is that he put out this one album and he just disappeared. Like nothing whatsoever. And it was never a big album. It was kind of one of those things that kind of caught a cult. People who found it were like, oh, I really like this. Chris O'Dowd plays a guy who has a fan site to Tucker Crow. And he kind of was obsessed over it. You know, he's a professor in, I think they're in England, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
They're somewhere in Britain because I don't think they're actually. I think they might actually be in Wales if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Or something.
Keep talking. I'm gonna get some coffee.
Okay, and then, so he is dating Rose Byrne, and you know they've been together for a while, but things are kind of not really going anywhere. You know, they don't know what's going to go on. You know, what's going to happen. Anyways, this guy is obsessed with Tucker Crow, and then one day he receives the name of the album was Juliet. Okay. Where the title of the movie comes from is that one day there is a CD that arrives at the house called Juliet Naked, and it's basically all the stripped back, like all the productions off of it. It's just the acoustic and and him, you know. And so she, you know, it's one of those things. Of course, he starts obsessing over this and all that kind of stuff. So he starts posting stuff on the website, and as a joke, she goes and writes a comment about how it was pretentious and all this kind of stuff and blah blah blah. Well, she gets an email later from someone saying, "I totally agree with you," and come to find out it's Tucker Crow. Then nobody's heard from him. They start corresponding back and forth,
right?
And he's telling his story about
warm up.
Sure. And so he's basically living off of the residuals from that album, from the royalties back in America. And he's living in the guest house at his son's mom's. Like, they're not together, but he's living there kind of taking care of the kid. He's like living there with his kid, you know, and you know, they're living separate lives. You know, and come to find out he's got like 5 kids or something like that, all different, you know, and he doesn't really have a relationship with any of them except for this youngest one.
Sounds like Troy.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff. And then I'm telling you all this, and this is like the first 15 minutes of the movie, okay? And then it goes from there, and it's, you know, and it's a cute movie. I really enjoyed it. I guarantee you watch it, and you'll be like, oh, I can see this being Troy's middle-aged story, okay? It's
Gotcha.
But I love stuff like that, and it has like, you know, there's a lot of music, and again, Ethan Hawke does the songs in it. Like
he's a musician himself.
He is, and some of it's just good, and some of it's not. Like, I really like the song "I'm Nothing."
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we're going to go out with that.
Okay.
And again, it's very of its time. Yeah. I mean, it's very of its time. But yeah, I've enjoyed some stuff. The stuff that he does on Juliet Naked, I really like. I'm gonna have to pick up that soundtrack because it's got some cool stuff. But yeah, check that out. Like I said, I know that one is on Max. This one's not. I don't think this was streaming anywhere, was it?
No, you can only.
I know.
You can get it on Vudu. You can get it on Amazon. You got to rent them.
Yeah, I know. I gave you the DVD.
Yeah.
And I'd picked up a Blu-ray copy of it, so I think
it may be like Apple Plus, Amazon.
Yeah, because I went looking to see if it was on anywhere. I was like, you got to be kidding!
It's like a $4 and change rental on Vudu.
You can pick up used DVDs of this pretty cheap if you got them. Yeah, they're usually around. So
I need a new player. My player's died, and I've got to get a new one.
Okay. So yeah, we did a really good Gen X piece of media with Freaks and Geeks, and then we did a pretty mediocre, bad side of mediocre.
This was
version.
This is Universal's attempt to
Yeah.
market to Gen X, and they were. It was literally a cash grab.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's talk about MTV. Let's hit all the Gen X high points, and let's drop some fairly decent music in it, and maybe Gen X will give us their money.
And again, all the 70s references, because that was in at the time, you know, and that kind of stuff. That's the whole thing with like, Vicky. Like, her entire room was like, had Sean Cassidy posters.
Yeah,
and they were singing Conjunction Junction from Schoolhouse Rocks, and of course there was
When was that cover album released?
It was after this.
Was it after
Yeah,
that?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope that didn't inspire the cover
I don't
album,
know,
because I
but-
like the cover album.
But yeah, you know, that kind of stuff where it's all the stuff that Gen X, older Gen X grew up with, a lot of it, and that kind of, you know, talking about
they're 10 years older than us.
and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I don't know. Results may vary on this one. How many showbiz tokens do you give this one out of 5?
I'm not giving up my tokens for this movie. I'm gonna spend them on another movie.
So yeah, I would give it like two tokens.
I'm totally keeping my tokens and waiting for the next video.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. If you saw this movie when you were in your 20s,
You thought it was a good movie.
go back and watch it now in your 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
And see what you really think about it. And who do you like who do you identify with the most now?
Yeah. It's going to be telling.
Yeah, it really is. Because, I was right there with Troy about Michael, you know, for a long time. And then now I'm like, no, Michael's the one that's kind of got it together.
I disagree with that.
Of all of them, he has it the most together.
I don't think he's got it all together. I think he's the one who's been able to fake it until he makes it the best.
Fair enough.
Because let's admit it, being an adult is basically faking that you know what you're doing and Googling the rest.
Yeah, there's something like that. I think there's a lot of lying to kids. That's what being an adult is.
Which,
who was the comedian? I can't remember his name now. I saw it's a clip that's been going around for about a year now. He's talking about conspiracy theories, and he's like, I can never understand how people and they say that they don't believe in conspiracy theories. He's like, really? You think the government doesn't lie to us about anything? He's like, I have one kid. I lie to him all the time.
it seems to me like there's a thin line between protection and straight out deception.
Yep. I gotcha. So, Reality Bites.
This movie bit.
I was getting ready to say, when I came home from seeing this movie in 1994,
Yeah.
okay, and I remember my mom asked me, how was the movie? Or she goes, what did you go see? I was like, Reality Bites. She's like, how was it? I was like, it bit.
Yeah.
And it kind of bit again last night when I watched it. Although the middle times that I watched it in between the two, I enjoyed it. But I think it was because I was living a little more of it at that point, you know? So that's...
Yeah.
You know, Ethan Hawke, I know we're trying to get out of here. Ethan Hawke has got a strange, I wouldn't even say filmography. He just, the way that he has been perceived over the years is really strange. You know, like he started off like,
I've always enjoyed.
you know, he
Ethan
was
Hawke.
like when he was a child actor, you know, like when we saw Explorers and you know, some stuff like that. And it's like, oh, all right, awesome. And then, you know, his kind of big break was Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, oh, dude, this guy's going to be, you know. And then this was like the next big thing he did after that.
Yeah.
And then after this was when he did, which I know you haven't seen them, but I highly suggest seeing them. Or he did Before Sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, the Before series. and all that.
I saw some other people talking about that movie.
Those movies are, talk about an arc of a couple.
Yeah.
Okay. With those three movies. Okay. But the thing is, he did that, and then he goes on. He does like he starts doing mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
He did Gattaca, and he did like all this other stuff. He had been doing all these kind of artsy. Like obviously he had done this was mainstream, but he had done some stuff that was more artsy in here and there.
Yeah.
And he was always one of those guys that people were like, oh, He's such a Gen X actor. You know, he's kind of like kind of embodies the whole Gen X thing. You know, it's him, and it's kind of like that next level of Brat Pack type stuff, that next wave. You know, like him and pump up the volume, Christian Slater, and you know some people like that. You know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I could kind of see this, but then he just kind of went away, and then he came back and he was doing a lot more artsy stuff again. Like you get Boyhood, you get you know, and then he went completely mainstream recently. You know,
no, not recently.
Well,
I mean,
in the last few years, but in the last few years, he started going. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the stuff that he's doing, he's always good in it. Yeah, you know, that's the whole thing with Ethan Hawke. Another one on my list of not every movie he's in is good, but he's always good in every movie that he's in.
I think what he does is he does the mainstream stuff to put money in the bank account and to allow him a way to live, so he can actually go and do the more artsy, independent stuff for, you know, hey, I want to try this. And that's part of being a good creative, is being able to go and just try different stuff.
I'll tell you a movie I love, and I know most people don't. It's him when Great Expectations that came out in '98. Oh, him and Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah, I love that. And like, let's put it this way. I have never liked the book, Great Expectations. I have never really liked any of the film adaptations of it. Okay. But I liked that one because it had a very definite aesthetic, and I know they changed a lot of stuff to do it. But I really enjoyed that. Yeah, you know, he also did like a modern version of Hamlet during that time. It had Julia Stiles and I forget who else. It was like around 2000, somewhere in there, and it was like modern. It was a modern take. It was like in New York City or something like that, you know. And yeah, it's just he would do that kind of stuff where it was like, okay, this is a little outside of the box, and good on him. You know, I'd go for it. You know, and then he goes and does Moon Knight, and I'm just.
That's right. He was.
Yeah, he was the bad guy in Moon Knight.
I never made it past 4 episodes of that show. It was so bad. I
still get angry thinking about that. So.
Well, the comic was always a hot dumpster fire.
I know, but then they managed to make the TV the Disney Plus series even worse, which is just anyway. All right, we're not gonna get on that again. Okay, Reality Bites. You're better off to go and watch Clerks. Clerks is a better movie. So.
Or Singles,
Singles is a good movie.
Which is what I think this movie was trying to be. Was a new Singles.
I think so. I think the halfway point between those two is probably Beautiful Girls, somewhere in there. So yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I will say this. This movie is the height of Winona cuteness.
Winona Ryder.
She is so cute in this movie.
When
she's not being so dislikable.
I was watching this movie and thinking about what I've seen Winona Ryder in recently. With Stranger Things. And thinking about how, like, 30 years later, this is where we are.
This is her at cute.
Yes.
Stranger Things is her at who?
Well, she looks like a mom. I mean, that's the whole thing.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, wow.
Oh, okay.
She looks good.
Yeah. She looks like your mom's hot, or your friend's hot mom. You know, I mean, that's kind of.
No, I'm like.
Let's put it this way:
if I was single and I saw her on the street, I'd be like, "Hey, you want to get coffee?"
Winona Ryder has aged incredibly well. Yeah. I mean, incredibly well. And the thing is you can go back because she got started so young. She was like really young when she got started.
I think I may have a bit of a crush.
Well, yeah, I get that. You know, I remember seeing Beetlejuice when I was, know, and I really loved her as Lydia Deetz. And then
we're going to get her reprising that role.
I know. And then, please be good. Please be good. And then she was in other, of course, she was in Edward Scissorhands after that. And then Mermaids and How to Make an American Quilt and this. And she was just in on a bunch of stuff throughout the 90s and stuff. What was really funny was watching that retrospective, which was, 2004 or whatever it was. And they were talking to her. And this was like blonde hair Winona Ryder,
No, I didn't.
I know. I wasn't a big fan of that either. Which was really funny because both her and Janine Garofalo both had blonde hair in these interviews from 2020 from 2024. Here's the thing:
everybody did that platinum blonde thing for a while.
But this was the funny thing. I got thinking about it. I was like, oh, they did these interviews And it was like a year later that she got caught shoplifting. And that whole thing, you know, it was like, oh, okay. This was like out there Winona Ryder, you know, like, okay, all right. But yeah, you know, Winona Ryder, I have not liked a lot of movies that she's in, but
granted,
she's all right. You know, like, come on, Dracula. Like, she wasn't bad in it, but that movie's not good.
Nothing about that movie was good, but for me, it's a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
I like
visually, it's stunning. I have always said that.
Gary Oldman in that movie is amazing,
but Keanu Reeves is not.
No, no, it's not good, Keanu.
But yeah, you can go through like her filmography and find the stuff like, oh, yeah, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is not, this is not, this is not, this is good. I'd never want to see another adaptation of Little Women again in my life. No. Okay, I mean they've done that so many times. Just let it go. Okay, I understand that is a girl movie, and I say girl movie as in young preteen and young teenage girls love that book for whatever reason. You know, I've never it's not made for me. Okay, it's not made for me. Fine, I get it. But how many adaptations of that movie adaptations have we had? It's ridiculous.
You're going to keep getting them.
I know. And so, all right, again, she was in that, you know. Yeah. Anyway, before
let Baz Luhrmann do a version of it.
Why, you want to really ruin it? Yeah, there you go.
Hey, don't pick on Baz.
I hate Baz Luhrmann.
Oh, come on.
Baz Luhrmann's movie is all style over substance, and I will go to the mat on that one all day long, and twice on Sunday. I mean,
I'm not saying all of his stuff is good, but he's put out some stuff I've enjoyed.
He has put out some soundtracks I have enjoyed. The movies themselves, no.
Okay.
And then there was that one time that he put out a soundtrack that made me even angrier than the movie. So that just... Anyway.
Go ahead. End the podcast.
Yeah. Fuck Moulin Rouge. So...
I didn't say all of his stuff was good. Moulin Rouge was definitely not one of them.
Oh, that's terrible, man. And The Great Gatsby. Oh, my God.
Oh, come on. That was a fun movie.
No. I've always hated that book. I've always hated that story. And they keep remaking it. And then Baz Luhrmann had to go and do his version of it and made it even worse than what I already have. No. So anyway, on that note, yeah. You can toast me all you want.
On that note.
On that note. We're going to get out of here. Make sure and go to our social medias. Check out all that stuff.
Discord,
like us. Go to Discord.
Blah, blah.
Go, please, like, subscribe, rate us on your podcatcher of choice. Apple Podcast does a world of good for us. You know, gets us in the algorithm. And yeah, I mean, we're on a pretty good pace now.
We don't ask for money. We just ask for reviews.
Yeah, and that, like, again, costs you nothing, does everything for us.
Yeah.
You know that. And so yeah, if you guys would do that, we will be back with another episode. Yeah, that's all I really got at this point because I got to come up with one. So. I know I came into this with the
and I've got work and traveling.
Yeah, saying, hey, I got something for another episode, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I don't have anything for that. Okay, we'll figure it out. So,
oh no,
it's gonna be one of those episodes.
Oh no,
it may not turn out to be as bad as it sounds, or it may turn out to be glorious.
Oh, this is gonna suck.
So, guys, we will see you next episode for possibly Dave's last.
Should have been a long time ago.
For the Project Gen X podcast, I'm Alan Smith.
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
We will see you next time.
Somebody help me.